USA versus Sean Combs, Day 7, May 20th. And I think we have finally started to build the case for racketeering. So let's go through this day. We had the assistant, David James, on, and he kind of seemed like he was a comedian, but then he kind of turned into a violent monster at the end. He did mention that when Cassie was brutally beaten and staying in a hotel, he brought her chicken, and when asked to describe it, he said it was very delicious fried chicken from Los Angeles. So he talked about, a lot of substances, prescriptions, a lot of non-prescriptions. So we've got these drug dealers involved, but we also have medical doctors involved who are writing prescriptions to random people, to fake names, to people who are not getting the medications. And I would like to know what pharmacy, what doctor, what license, like who are these people? And they better be brought into this, and I'm sure they will be. Um, when everybody took X, they took the ones with Obama's face on them. Wasn't aware that those were there. When things went missing, what's interesting is that Sean Combs had a former FBI agent give lie detector tests. So it sounds like they were given the polygraph. And so David explains that he was given the polygraph on two occasions when a bracelet was missing and a watch was missing. And he does describe it as the electrodes were hooked up and it was an actual polygraph. And I don't know if it was a former FBI agent, again, someone to subpoena. Uh, it was said that Diddy's favorite place for these freak offs was the Trump Hotel. The irony in that is, whew. Um, so they mentioned the night with Suge Knight, where he was at Mel's diner, and when Combs found out, he gathered a bunch of pew pews, three of note, and put them on his lap. And his assistant David and others, his security, drove to the diner. Not really sure what happened. I'm sure we all have guesses. Um, when he was asked why he was even talking about this, I think it's called prefer. So basically, like, he can't get in trouble now for all the crazy stuff he did, which you'll find out later because he was, this comedian, charming. People seem to be laughing along with him. And then, boom, did you violently assault the chef? Well, yes, I did. I took her wrists and I pinned her down and I screamed at her to stay in her lane. And it was reported to headquarters of Bad Boy because, of course, these are all employees of Bad Boy Enterprises. And so it was reported. So then who does he have to talk to? Well, Sean Combs. So he goes into his office, he goes into a meeting, and, Sean's advice, because he's so brilliant. Again, these people are really smart, really educated. Um, says, give her a gift. Just give her a gift. He says, I don't accept violence. You just give her a gift. Really? You don't accept violence? That's so odd because you're like one of the most violent people I think I've ever heard of. And I'm a forensic psychologist who deals with people with really, really heinous crimes. But your continuity of crimes has a level of severity that shows that you are addicted to sadism and sexual sadism. But anyway, this assistant decides that the perfect gift for the chef would be to roll a blunt and give it to her, and she seemed pleased in his opinion. Now, again, will she be subpoenaed? Will she be testifying? I can't even imagine the lawyers juggling all of these witnesses and trying to get them to show up, especially escorts. This must be such a shit show. I can't imagine people are sleeping. No one must be sleeping. So again, we learned about ketchup. I don't know. He talked a lot about ketchup and applesauce. Maybe that comes into things later. He didn't really seem to know that Sean Combs liked applesauce so much, but he was aware that Sean Combs really, really likes the ketchup. There was no discussion of STDs or sexually transmitted disorders, which maybe we'll get to that later. How could there not be? There must be quite a bit of shared fluid. Yeah, so we talk about, this chef sounds like she went through hell. It also sounds like the assistant at one point picked up two prostitutes and slept with one for $200, and then she wanted a shower, and he said, "Well, that'll be 200 more." Oh, wow, somebody really grew into their role. Maybe they were groomed. Maybe they sought out a role or a position. It sounds like it was just another person that was kind of trained that this is okay, and we can get away with unaliving. We can get away with anything we want. So just join Bad Boy. It's called Bad Boy. Ugh, the irony of all of this. Cassie's mom took the stand for about 15 minutes, where she called Sean Combs the boss, the boyfriend, the abuser, and basically said that when there was a video of Cassie with another man who is due to testify, a famous man, that she was extorted, that Combs demanded that she send wire $20,000 to Bad Boy, so that he wouldn't show this explicit video of Cassie. And so her mom took out a loan and did that. It sounds like the money was wired back, but then also, who cares? Because there we go. We have our extortion. We have a component of racketeering, and we just need to keep building on that. And it really does sound like we have sex trafficking, and we will continue to build on that as well. So it's a bit like the R. Kelly case. We're painting the picture. It's all starting around that Intercontinental Hotel abusive video where Sean Combs is violently beating the living shit out of Cassie. And we're just going to keep building, because this is his character. This is how other people in the company acted. They used money, power, and violence to control people. So then we have another, we have I don't know, the dry humper professional who comes on and he testifies for a bit. He basically was like a dancer, but surprised that it kind of turned into schmexual things. Sometimes he couldn't get it up. And when he couldn't get it up, I think that was his inspiration for the book he wrote, which he entitled In Search of Freezer Meat. I wish I was in the room. I got to ask, but the lawyer seemed to say something like, "Good title." I don't know. What the hell? We're talking about some serious effing abuse and trauma, and now we're joking about freezer meat. So I don't know. This guy also said that that Combs would wear Muslim garb, but when he went in, he wasn't allowed to look at Combs, but he could tell it was him, and he could tell what kind of lube it was because it had the same cap as the lube he had at home that he was using. But overall, there was one question. You wouldn't try to dry hump someone who didn't want to be dry humped. Okay. I don't care what physical behaviors are occurring. I don't care how somebody looks or appears. I don't care about your impression. You don't know the inner world. You don't know the coercion. You don't know the pain. You don't know how stuck they are. You don't know how terrified they are. And yes, a woman can have a literal orgasm by force just to make a man happy if she is that terrified of losing her life. Yes, that is possible. I know most of you men listening can't get a woman to orgasm even when she likes you, but when she doesn't, she can also force it to save her own fucking life. Okay, then we had the special agent jump on. I think he'll probably be on the stand tomorrow. But he mentioned that he was the one who instructed 80 to 90 agents to enter Combs's house, in which they found AR-15 rifles near sex toys, Astroglide, and 7-inch heels. What the living fuck? Anyways, so there were full-on bullets in these magazines, and so these are active weapons. But the serial numbers were scratched off, so it's kind of hard to know who bought them. I don't know if you guys have ever heard Oakland, California. They had this day where they were like, "We're gonna pay everyone who's a gangster, everyone who has a pew pew that they shouldn't have. We're gonna pay you like $500 if you turn it into us, because we're gonna help fix gun crime, right? Pew pew crime." Uh, and so everybody did it. People turned in a ton of weapons, and they got all this cash, and they were pumped, right? So when the police department went through all of the weapons, they were all broken. They were all broken. And so we just paid a bunch of criminals to go get more working guns. Okay. So that's just an important story. Anyways, so it does sound like these weapons that were found were set to be used as semi-automatic weapons. And so I think this is going to be a big component of the danger that was looming around this enterprise and the genuine fear that people had of being unalived by Sean Combs. Catch you tomorrow. It's only going to get more juicy.